Martin Scorsese, the chronicler of violence and urban solitude. Introduction. Have you ever felt that the world is a chaotic, violent, and incomprehensible place? Well, there is a director who has dedicated his career to portraying precisely that. Martin Scorsese has not only been an exceptional storyteller but has also brought to the screen some of the most intense and disturbing stories about loneliness, alienation, and violence in modern society. Today, we're diving into one of his most emblematic films, Taxi Driver, a masterpiece that not only defined his career but also left an indelible mark on film history. Scorsese and his unique style. If there's one thing that defines Scorsese's cinema, it's his visual energy, his storytelling style, and his obsession with complex and morally ambiguous characters. In his films, we always find long takes and tracking shots that fully immerse us in the story. Voice-over narration to understand the protagonist's thoughts. Fast-paced editing that gives a unique rhythm to the narrative. Carefully selected soundtracks that enhance the emotion of each scene. And above all, a constant focus on loneliness and alienation in a world that seems increasingly cold and hostile. A bit of context. Martin Scorsese was born in 1942 in New York, in the Little Italy neighborhood. He grew up surrounded by stories of the streets, the mafia, and urban violence. In the 1970s, American cinema was undergoing a radical change with the rise of New Hollywood, an era when directors like Scorsese, Coppola, and Spielberg began telling rawer, more personal, and realistic stories. It was in this context that Scorsese created Taxi Driver, a film that reflects the disenchantment of an entire generation in an era marked by the Vietnam War, the Watergate scandal, and rising urban violence. The story of Taxi Driver. The protagonist of Taxi Driver is Travis Bickle, masterfully played by Robert De Niro. Travis is a former Marine and Vietnam War veteran who works as a nighttime taxi driver in New York. He suffers from insomnia, is completely alone, and starts obsessing over the city's moral decay. As his mental state deteriorates, he convinces himself that he must do something to clean up society. In his attempt to find a purpose, he plans to assassinate a politician, but when his plan fails, he ends up becoming an anti-hero after rescuing a young prostitute, played by Jodie Foster, in an explosion of violence. Why is Taxi Driver a key film? This movie epitomizes Scorsese's cinema. It plunges us into the mind of a man who can't find his place in the world, makes us witness his progressive detachment from reality, and forces us to question, how much can someone be a victim of their environment before becoming a monster? Some aspects that made Taxi Driver a masterpiece. Subjective storytelling. The story puts us inside Travis's mind, making us experience his madness firsthand. Striking cinematography. New York City is depicted as a dark, dangerous, and almost hellish place, thanks to Michael Chapman's incredible cinematography. Unforgettable soundtrack. Bernard Herrmann's music blends melancholic jazz with moments of pure tension. Iconic scenes. Who doesn't remember Travis's legendary "You talkin' to me" line in front of the mirror? One of the most famous improvisations in cinema history. The legacy of Taxi Driver. When Taxi Driver premiered in 1976, it made a huge impact. It won the Palme d'Or at Cannes and was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Actor for De Niro. Over time, it has been considered one of the greatest films in history and continues to be analyzed from multiple psychological, social, and even political perspectives. Its influence can be seen in the films of directors like Quentin Tarantino, Paul Thomas Anderson, and Nicholas Winding Refn. Moreover, its exploration of violence and madness still resonates in today's movies and TV series. Conclusion. Taxi Driver is not just a movie, it is a reflection of a society in crisis and of a man who cannot find his place in it. Scorsese forces us to take a close look at the violence, loneliness, and despair that can arise in the heart of any city. And the most unsettling part? Decades later, its message is just as relevant as the day it was released. So next time you feel like the world is a chaotic and incomprehensible place, remember that Scorsese already told that story, in the most brutal way possible.